10:05 and we all here.
Yes.
So we have a couple more people coming in, but we need to start. We have such an honorable guest today, Steve. Let's come over with me, Steve.
Welcome.
We can handle that. We will hear from Steve, and then we all have opportunity to ask questions because we all here in the luxury market. We cannot have better person in our office than Steve with that.
Well, thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I want to start out by saying, and I do this every time before my kids go to a sporting event or go to an event or something, I go, dun, 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 dun. So I always wanted to do one for myself. Okay, so dun, 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 dun. But anyway, thanks very much. Yeah, my name's Stephen Presson. I'm with the Corcoran Group. And actually, I love doing this because I remember I've never lost for a second. When I started in the business, I just wanted to learn from everyone. And I learned from everyone along the way. And you find out some people are open to meeting with you. In the business, it's very territorial. And, you know, I've come to respect all the different personalities in the business. But I've never forgotten. I can remember all the different agents I reached out to. And, you know, the one theme I'll start by saying is I always left saying, you know what? They never were as impressive as I thought they were going to be. And that's not a knock against them, but it gave me the attitude that, you know what, maybe I could do, like I was expecting so much more, like, you know, something that even wouldn't be realistic when you meet some of the top agents in this business. And maybe you guys are standing here or sitting in your seats right now looking at me and like, geez, if this guy can do it, well, you know, maybe I can. And truth be told, you can. You absolutely can. But here's the first thing I'm going to try to just give some little anecdotes, little things that I've seen. You know, my first year in the business with no name, no track record. I had a vision, I had a work ethic. I didn't have any real estate training. I was probably at a perfect time in my life where I was ready to take the next big leap in my career. Truthfully, to then, I don't think I ever made more than $100,000. And there's not, if anyone's making $100,000, that's great. But just to give you an idea where I was in my career, I don't think I ever reached much more financial success than that. And I don't judge myself by that, by the way. But when I started, no name, no track record of vision. I listed $32 million in properties my first year. I spent $80,000. I made, I think, $38,000 in commission. So I net lost $42,000. But when I started, I had a vision and a business plan. And a lot of things changed along the way. I tried everything, you know, everything. Some things worked, some things didn't work. Some things worked, but then I wanted to tweak and make it better. But here's the first message I want to say to you guys, and it kind of, you know, I was a big baseball fan growing up, and you know, Pete Rose. I was thinking about this when I came in today. Pete Rose is my favorite player, and I used to wear the same shirt all the time, and it was like this ugly red shirt. It had like 15 different colors. I wore it with orange pants, plaid pants, you name it. I wore it to church. I wore it to school. It had a theme. It said, "Hustle makes it happen." And this business, it's the one theme I had from day one is I just didn't want to be another realtor. Everyone knows a lot of realtors in this business, right? Before you got into the business, I'm sure you knew a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, the real estate, I'm going to take my jacket off. The real estate profession doesn't always have some of the reputations, or you know what I mean? You hear the same things. And when I started, I spoke to a lot of friends who, before I looked into real estate, I wanted to get a lot of perspectives from different people to help, you know, because I was making a big decision, getting in a new career. I didn't have any experience. I didn't come just to give an idea of my background. You know, my mother passed away when I was very young. She was on, you know, we were on Social Security. So I didn't come into this business with a spoon, you know, a gold spoon or anything like that. I had to earn everything from day one. But I realized that if you go out there and make it happen, you know, you can do it. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, and this is like something you've heard, or if you've done any reading, any sales or marketing or motivation, it's something you know, but you got to have it from within, and you want to really try to be a difference maker and not being another realtor. I didn't want to be average, and I didn't think I was smarter than anyone in this business before I got into it, but I did think maybe I could work as equally as hard as anyone. And I knew this thing for sure. And this was the one thing a lot of people said for reasons not to get into it is I've known a lot of successful people who've tried and failed. It's a cutthroat business. It's extremely competitive. And by the way, all those things are very, very true. But I felt like if I worked hard, I worked smart, and most importantly, I built my business through relationships and adding value and not just being another realtor. That theme right there has carried me through to today, where, and not that it means anything, but just to give you an idea where I'm at today, my team will probably end up selling over $150 million in real estate. It's more than 98% of the offices in Palm Beach County. And I only say that because I went out there and I earned it, and I started at zero, one at a time. So the first thing, and I asked Mila before we started, and it goes back to Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle makes it happen. I said, if you guys had floor duty, because the first thing I was going to say, I've never taken floor duty in my life. Now, I came from an environment where floor duty might have been a little more responsive in the Palm Beach office, in a marquee location where there's a ton of traffic, and a lot of agents would take floor duty and still do. I think I probably took it once or twice, but my mentality, I'm not the type that is going to sit around and wait for it to happen. And if you're that type, this isn't the business for you. I can tell you point blank. It's not going to happen. You have to go out there and earn your stripes, earn your wings every single day, adding value. I mentor a lot of agents in this business, and I love doing it because it's always a way to give back. When I've sat down with agents the first time, and some of them been with Corcoran, and I say to them, I say, if I drive by the office and I see your car in the parking lot during business hours, I already know right off the bat that you're gonna have an uphill struggle, because each one of you are your own biggest asset. And if you're in front of a computer trying to convince yourself that you're really busy doing spreadsheets, there's a time and place to do those, but it's not between 9 and 5 during your business hours. That's where you have to be out there running around. To use another, sports equation, if you're a baseball player and you need to get 10 at bats to get, to get 3 hits, and you're considered successful. And if you have 4 at bats and I have 7 or 8, I'm going to be more successful. You might have more, you might look better than me, you might sound better than me, but if I'm out working you and bringing some value with maybe a little integrity and real relationship skills, I'm going to beat you. You have no chance. The person who works the hardest, my son's an aspiring soccer player. He trains 20 hours a week. He wasn't born a soccer player. Stephen Curry, I read this recently, the 3-point shooter for the Golden State Warriors. He's viewed by many people as the best shooter of all time. Stephen Curry wasn't born shooting 3-pointers out of a hospital. He's just taken millions more shots than anyone else. And real estate is the same thing. It's a tough, the other part, it's a tough business. It's a grind. I always make the joke that, I think every year I age like in dog years, like 7 years, because it beats you down. It's, when you're dealing in the luxury, how many people really want to be in the luxury market space? I'm just curious. And you don't have to say, okay. And how many do you think, honestly, have put your best foot forward to get yourself there up to now? Be honest. Okay, all right, a couple, but just expect it. But, it's never too late to start. But I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'll get into some bullet points. In my first couple of years, I told you, I got off to a good start. People seemed to like my sincerity. They'd sensed that I was real. I was genuinely not here or looking to build relationships. I was really doing it. People say it. All the stuff I'm saying, people say it. Whether you do it, that's a whole different ballgame. Everyone says, oh yeah, I work hard. I really care about my clients. You know that. And by the way, people can read through it. Maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but by the time they get to know you over the course of a relationship, they kind of know what you're all about. But I'm sorry, what was my train of thought that was ahead of time? No. But point is that, here's what I was going to say. So when I started, with no name, no track record, went out there and listed $32 million. I knew I was headed in the right path. And over the next 5 years, quite frankly, I was able to build a book of business, somewhere candidly, and people thought it was more than what it was because I was a pretty good marketer. But realistically, I was selling for about the first 5 years in this business, somewhere between $10 to $20 million. And by the way, if anyone's doing that, that's an unbelievable amount in this business. But I had a day, and this is why I asked if you're really doing what it requires to get where you want to be is, I don't know if I got content, but I actually maybe thought internally that I was a little better than what I was. And I used to meet with a lot of agents, and then you keep track, I'm a competitive person internally, and, so I'm kind of aware of what's going on and who's selling what. And geez, this agent's selling 80 million and this one's selling 100 million. I've met with these agents, I've dealt with them, and I'm like, geez, man, I could be every bit as much as they are. But at the end of the day, life's about keeping score. And if they're doing 100 million, and I'm doing 10 to 20, there's something I'm there. And truth be told, I got really mad at myself. I got really, really mad at myself. That was kind of like my day of reckoning. And I thought about it for a couple of days. And then from that day on, I had a vision of where I wanted to be. And I went out. At that time, I had a website. I went out and I looked at some of my competitors' websites. Spent $10,000, completely redid my website. I had an agent say to me right around that time, an agent who met me for the first time, and he said, he's like, Steve, I thought he was making a joke. He's a buddy of mine, but also there was some truth to it. He's like, I thought you'd be better dressed than what you are. And he's a straightforward guy, and I took to heart what he said. I didn't take it personally. I took to heart, and I said, so I went out and bought a whole new wardrobe. Okay. But more importantly, then I looked at my marketing, and my marketing was actually pretty good, but I was content at that time with just being pretty good. So then I completely fine-tuned it to take it to a whole nother level. I'm going to give you an example. We've done many, many things, but here's an example of one of the things that we did. So we created a list of every single property in Palm Beach County that was $5 million and above. And then we wanted to find properties $5 million and above that were over 270 days in the market. Typically listing agreements are a year, right? So we knew that typically those listings, if they don't sell and they haven't sold in the first 270, it's not like today where everything sells in a minute, that there's a very good chance that, in the next 90 days, they might be looking to make a change. So what we did was these very, very intricate marketing pieces, huge foldovers, and, I might be touting a sale that we had or a big listing and, et cetera. And then and we would hit them every 2 weeks. And by the way, in 90 days, I got a bunch of those listings, and I got a bunch of listing appointments. That's just one example among many. So my point for telling you is this story is you need to have one of those days, because today might not be the day. Quite frankly, it's probably not. It's just not some guy coming in here and rah doing a Tony Robbins for 5 minutes, and you walk out the door and you chest bump everyone, and then you get back in your car and you're going back to who you are, and that's okay. But one day, if you want to get to the next level, you got to really look at yourself and not say it to someone else. Say it to yourself, and then go out there and do it. I had that day, and my next goal was to get to 30. I wasn't unrealistic to say I wanted to go from 10 to 20 to 100. I said I'm going to get to 30, and I got to 30. Then I said I'm going to get to 50. I got to 50. Then I said I'm going to get to 75. I got to 75. Then I said the last part of my goal was once I get to 75, I'm going to shoot for 100 million for a 10-year period. And then I'm going to retire. But I don't think I'm going to retire. But my point is, I had that, and you know what? I reached every one of those goals. I had it. I wrote it down. It was in my mind, and I didn't listen. I didn't, and so you need to have that. And it doesn't have to be 100 million. Not everyone can do 100 million. There's a lot of things that help me get to where I am. It's just not me standing here going. There's a lot of things that played into it. But whatever your goals are, if you really have that moment, you can absolutely do it if you want to. But it's challenging yourself. If I told you the stuff I did my first year, I told you it sounds real easy. First year I said I spent $78,000 or $80,000. I went out there, I listed 32 million. You know how tough that was? You think it just fell in my lap? I was out there every single morning at 8 in the morning, 8:30 networking. And I'm jumping ahead, but here's one of the first things I did when I got in this business. And I'm going to talk about some things today that when I started, I had a little bit of money, not a lot, but a little bit. I just came off selling a business. So I had the luxury of investing in myself and a new career, and I didn't have any real true financial pressure right off the bat. But there was a lot of things I did that didn't cost much, and there were some things I did that cost a little. But the thing that cost the least is the phone. And the first thing I did was I hired, and no one's ever told me they've done this before, because it was amazing the response I got. Is I hired a person to work for me. I put an ad in the Palm Beach Post under the telemarketing section. And I wasn't looking for someone to call for sale by owners. I've never done that one day in my life, but that's another story. I wanted someone, because I was looking to build a business. And if you're really trying to build a business, what are you trying to build? You're trying to build relationships. And relationships come over time. You and I could start a relationship today, but we're not going to really know each other. So maybe the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th time. It's just like, just out there as you're cultivating your markets and farm areas. So relationships. So what I wanted to do was, I lost my train of thought.
The telemarketer.
The telemarketer, yeah. So I put an ad in the newspaper. Lady called me up, just perfect coincidence, had real estate experience, She always wanted to be a number 2, number 3, worked in some sales offices, but most importantly, she had a lot of phone experience. Her name was Joanne Scott. We met in Delray Beach, and I hired Joanne to call people, centers of influence, bankers, CPAs, trust and estate attorneys, divorce attorneys, people touching very wealthy families and trying to build and cultivate a relationship. At that time, I had no name in the business. I had a good brand behind me, like you guys, which opened some doors. And she would set up, no exaggeration, anywhere between 10 to 15 meetings per week. And I would go over to Kachina's, was always one of my hot spots, McCarthy's, which isn't no longer there in Palm Beach. I would go there, meet someone for breakfast at 8, and then 9:15, I have a second meeting, and probably realistically go on 10 to 15 of these meetings a week. And so people, when I ever tell the story, people always say, well, why would they want to meet with you? Which is a fair question. And just don't they hang up on you? And well, first of all, you're calling in, you're making a business call. It's not a, you're cold calling a house that's expired a week ago and 300 people have called in the meantime. You're calling into the business community. And the one thing that I heard immediately, because I would also ask the question, I was happy that you took the time to meet with us. And many people said to me, you were the first person from your profession that ever reached out. We have a ton of CPAs, we have a ton of this, we have a ton of that, but never a realtor. You were the first realtor, and we were intrigued by that. Other people, like yourselves, if you're out there looking to really truly network, well, there's other people looking the same things that you are, so you just have to beat them to the punch. So we met with those type of people. And then what you do is you find people that you have similar interests with. I have a good buddy of mine, I remember, a banker, very, very high-end banker on the island. We had a bunch of things at times. A big football fan. He had a boxer. I had a boxer. Kids were about the same age. So, and then before you know it, we became still very, very, very good friends. Very good friends today. So that's just one example of going out there and building. But some people always want to chase that immediate sale. And I meet those agents all the time. I was looking to build a long-term business. I don't want to build a transactional business. I want to build a book of business that's about relationships and adding value and being different. And quite frankly, that's a long-term business model, but it takes longer to get there because there are some agents who are just chasing the sale and they're at a party or they're at a school event and they find out a family's looking to move and then you try to, I've never done that once in my life and I never will. That's not the way. I'm very aggressive and I spend a ton of money. I work very hard. I like to think I work smart. I've never knocked on the door. I've never cold called. I've been to many, many social functions. I don't care who's there. I have no interest. I'm not chasing anyone. What I try to do is add value to my name and my brand where people come search me out. And that's the best way to do it. But it takes time, it takes persistence, and it takes energy. It's not this is not a get rich quick real estate business. It takes time and energy. But if you do it the right ways, you can really sustain a long-term business model. So I'm going to hit some.
I have a question for you because I'm always fascinated by people that have reached that level of success, what their background is. And looking into your Facebook, I did a little investigative work.
Of course you did.
I can't believe you let me share stuff.
Oh my God, I have to share with you. Shocker. No, he is the kindest down-to-earth person. And one thing that I noticed in your Facebook page is the little interviews with the vendors, the stores, just acknowledging that you had a flat tire and that this great mechanic helped you and so on, and how you build that relationship. So I just kind of noticed that. I was very intrigued. But one thing that I really want to know is, what was your background? I mean, we heard that you lost your mom at a very young age.
I never really figured myself out until I got in real estate. I had a bunch of different careers. Actually, it's funny, I was actually at a paint store yesterday. At one time, I thought I was going to be a painter. That's why, I went to college and I did college painting and painted old houses during the summer. And I was making like 400 hours a week in college and thought that was like the greatest thing on earth and thought I'd be a painter one day, right? And then I went in and I didn't want to do the corporate America. I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Then I messed around with a few things. Then I decided I wanted to come to Florida because I just love the weather and lifestyle. I hate cold weather. I came from the Northeast, so cold weather to me is like I just don't really enjoy it. Then I got down here, and truth be told, I was coming down here virtually knowing no one. I had to start over and kind of rebuild myself. And then I was in the technology industry for about 4 years. I got promoted up into sales management. because I was good at managing resources and people and, and sales opportunities. And then when the dot-com thing crashed, basically they demoted all the mid managers, and I was one of them. They gave me the opportunity to stay in sales. I reluctantly took it, but that was like the kiss of death for me. And I said, you know what? I want to really work for myself. I wanted to, and then I started a medical supply company that did high-end mobility devices for geriatrics. And quite frankly, and I looked at even buying a company before we even started our own. And at my first year, we did more business than a company that I very seriously considered buying, and been doing it for 10 years. And I was starting to hone my business skills, my service skills, my business, my marketing skills. And quite frankly, I'd still be in the business today, but it was getting so regulated. I used to always tell people when they ask me that, for the good guys, we always adhere to all the rules. So every time there's a new rule or regulation, it just makes it more stringent, more harder. I mean, we used to have like these little sales chart things that would, you have to do like 23 things to successfully end a transaction. And it was just getting harder and harder. So when I sold that business, that was when the real estate market was kind of picking up big time. And I didn't know if I wanted to be in real estate, but I figured, maybe it's not a bad idea to get my real estate license. And then I'm the type of person, I'm either all or nothing. I can't do anything in between. And when I got into real estate, I was about 3 weeks into it, and I knew I could do this. I had an intern. It was the first time I really had that confidence, where I felt like I didn't know to what level, but I felt like I could do it, have a successful career, enjoy it, provide for my family and those kind of things. And I was right. I had that internal confidence, and so that's kind of how I got here, and then just kind of took its course. But first thing I want to mention is, so every single thing, this is so important, and this is something but you really take it to heart. When I was in prior careers, especially in the technology industry, I had a big fear. I don't know if you guys have ever had it. I hated technology. I was telling, in fact, I saw a buddy of mine I used to work with for the first time, like 20 years ago, Lance, just the other day. His mom's a realtor. And I was saying to him, I remember at that time, I used to convince myself, I'd go out and buy every technology book, and I never read a page of any one of them because it just wasn't. So, and then when we're managing, these are very high level technology sales, dealing with Fortune 2000 customers and traveling all over the country. Like, I always had a fear of being a fun. I just didn't want to be a nice guy. I wanted to be able to add value, right? Be a difference maker, right? And I never had that in that field, and it kept me from reaching. And I kept convincing myself I wanted to for all the right reasons, but I never could follow through with it. So now, when I got in real estate, I had that same fear. And I never wanted anyone because I knew I was going to work it hard, and I knew I was going to pound the street. And I also know how hard it is to get opportunities. I never wanted someone to question because of maybe my inexperience. How long have you done this? How many properties have you sold? Have you guys ever had, you fear of those things, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I dealt with those, every one of them. But here's what I did immediately. And this is something I recommend. If you haven't done it, really be a scholar for real estate. The first year in the business, every single day I would go on the Palm Beach Post. They had an amazing real estate blog. And I think Jeff Ostrowski still does it today. He's a really good guy. And every single day I would read the real estate news and notes. Everything from the median sales price in Palm Beach County is 400. I remember, I remember like it was yesterday. And I would take every day, like 3 or 4 bullet points. It could be Tom Brady and Giselle were over in Palm Beach League. But doesn't everyone love to talk about real estate? Have you ever met anyone who doesn't have an interest in talking real estate? They want to know what's happening in the market. They want to know what their home's worth. They want to know if it's just good or is it, have you ever met everyone loves talking real estate. So every single person you come in contact with at some point in your life potentially could be a client, right? So how many times, so every day I'd go on that blog, and I would just, you'd read an article, maybe it was, 6 or 7 or 8, and I would just, if you capture the first 2 lines and the last 2 lines, you've captured the whole thing, right? So I would just cut and paste every single one of those every single day. And then the next day I would go back and I would reread everything, and all of a sudden these bullet points, I could just spit them out. I could spit them out quickly. And it also gave me some confidence, I could talk confidently about what I hadn't done it. I hadn't practiced it. I hadn't done it in real life, but it was in my mind. It's kind of like my son's visually training to be a soccer player. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. So no one ever to this day, how hard it was. And some of those points, I got a lot of listings, right? With no name and no track record, because I had the confidence. I could talk about it intelligently. I remember one time I was at a luncheon in Palm Beach. The broker who hired me always believed it, and he tried to put me in some good positions. And one time I was at a table with like a couple other very, very accomplished brokers, and then there was a couple of donors or whatnot. And one of the brokers afterwards came over to me and said, "Hey, I heard you talking to," and they knew a little bit. They knew like, yeah, it was fairly new. I don't know if I was in the business a year, but relatively very new. And I don't think I'd done much of any, had any success that they would notice. But they said to me, like, you're pretty new. Like, they were curious. Like, I was listening to you talk. Like, you really know your stuff. Like, how do you know all that? Well, that was the reason, because I kept. And just so now, when you guys are out and about, so I told you before, I'm very aggressive in my marketing. I tell John, there's a day comes where people say to me today, which is, because we're on a good road right now, I see your name everywhere. I see your signs everywhere. I see your ads everywhere. I see you on social media. You're like all over the place. You're so big. I know I'm winning in my business, but then what does that mean? That means when I'm walking one day, and this happens, it's happened, every one of these stories has happened, whether it be at a school function, whether it be at Publix, whether it be at the dry cleaners, you run in, they see your picture and they recognize my messy hair and all that kind of stuff. And they say, "Oh, you're Stephen Presson." And then ultimately they want to have a little bit of a real, now you're in my wheelhouse, because that's a business that I know and I am very passionate about it, and I can talk intelligently. I can give you a realistic perspective of where the market is. So in that 2 minutes that they've only seen my name, we had a conversation, and it was probably received extremely well. Real guy, honest, nice way about him, very sincere, and knows I can talk about the market from every different level, local, macro, micro. I can tell all different, and people love that kind of stuff. You can sell it in a nice way. So my point for telling you that is everything you do now is an opportunity to meet a client, right? Everyone to certain levels, whether you're at 100% optimum, every one of you is doing something to grow your business today. So with all due respect, there's a couple of people here today that aren't dressed like luxury brokers, but everyone, when I walked in here, said I want to be a luxury broker. And you're going to say, well, and don't take this personal. I always try to be honest. People want to hear the truth. So you want to be a luxury broker, but when you run into a client later today, or a potential client, or a potential relationship, what do you think the perception is? There's a lot of people who would love to have my job. There's a lot of people who would love to have my Rolodex. Is there a lot of people that are willing to do what it takes to get there? That would be a question I'd have to ask you. So everything you do is an opportunity. When you pick up your kids, look like a professional. Even if you didn't have an appointment that day, look like a professional. Be a professional. You want to be a luxury broker? There's no corners to be cut. Or you'll be at a spot that you're comfortable with, and that's fine. But when everyone says, I want to be a luxury broker, ask yourself that question. Because I have a young buck who's with me. I'll tell you a story. And who called me a year ago. He's 22 years old, 21, 22 years old, no experience, but he's aggressive and he's willing to work. And he looks the part, plays the part, and he's not afraid to pick up the phone. He's got a skill of just picking up the phone, and he calls these for sale by owners all over Florida. And you know what? He's going to make $300,000 this year. 22 years old. Looks the part, sounds the part, and is willing to put the work behind it. You guys have all way more experience than him. But if I had to take a guess, and I don't know everyone's sales here, but I bet he's probably outsold most of the people here in this room. He's just worked a little harder, he's worked a little smarter, and he played the part. So if you want to be a luxury broker, I tell people this money takes time, it takes energy, it takes persistence. You build relationships over time. No matter who you meet today, you could have the greatest lunch with someone that was referred to you. You're not going to really build a relationship. It's that old saying in sales, you got to touch a client 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times. Well, it's the same thing here. So look the part, play the part. I remember when I first started, And this was little subtle things that people would do, because I'd get in these listing appointments and they didn't never directly ask me what I sold, but I had a couple of clients, they always took a note of what type of shoes I'm wearing. There's people do that, what type of watch I'm wearing. I had a client walk, I knew exactly what he was doing. He walked me out to my car because he wanted to see what type of car I was driving. He just wanted, he's like, he didn't know my name, but as I went there, I checked a lot of boxes. But now he's getting a little, he's like, maybe this is too good to be true. I want to see if there's a weak link in his armor. And those are all things that we control. And he never said it, but I knew exactly what he was doing. He went out there, and he just took a casual note. I passed all the tests, okay? So ask yourself today, on every opportunity that you have, if you're checking every single box. And if you're not, that's shame on you, because then you're leaving opportunity. That's shame on you. I'm gonna hit some of these really quick, because I can ramble forever. So take that to heart. Be an expert. When you get that opportunity to speak to someone, ultimately, whether it be at your daughter's cheerleading class or whatever it is, if you're in real estate, people want to talk about it. Well, have something of substance to offer, and not talk about yourself or what you're doing. Talk about, when it's appropriate. I look for people to come to me. I don't wear my real estate badge. I want people to come to me, like I said earlier. I want to earn that opportunity where they'll want to come and get my opinion on stuff. That's when I can shine, because that's where you're in my wheelhouse. Anything else, I'm kind of like a fish out of water. But real estate, I feel pretty good. I know the business. I can illustrate it extremely well, intelligently, give some insights, those kind of things. People love that stuff. So when you're running around, don't leave be knowledgeable, do the research, know your market, know your inventory, know what's happening in the market, be a cheerleader, be realistic. Things are really good now, so it's hard not to, but I've never built my business ever trying to tell people what they want to hear on a sales call. I try to add value and insight and give them real, the listing properties is about a business partnership. And I always tell people, you're only as good as the information you give. So if you're holding back or you don't have the value to bring, well, then you're coming to the table a little bit shorter than maybe the next person. So, but just think about what I said. I had a point where I wanted, I needed to take my career to the next level. So everything I said, I've been here myself. So, take that to heart. But I would really, otherwise I'm stressing this because I know, like, you run around, it's a hard business. It's hard, especially now. You know how hard it is to get listings? I mean, unless you're entrenched in an area, you're not getting them. You're just absolutely not. You know how hard it is to be a buyer's agent today? It's harder than it's ever been, because buyers today are looking all over South Florida. They're not the buyer just looking for the golf community that you work in. I'm just making something up. Now it's looking all over the place because there's no inventory there. So now they're looking here, there. They're looking at condos, but they never would have thought about condos. They're working with agents in all different areas of the country, different areas in Florida, different areas in Palm Beach County. So the old day of a client flying in, meeting with you, showing them properties for the next 3 weeks doesn't exist. If it does, it's a relative or a friend. So this business is extremely hard right now. So if you want to get to the next level, you got to challenge yourself and put yourself in a position so when opportunity knocks, you're ready. And here's the last thing I'm going to say about opportunity, because this is a big one for me. When I first got in the business, this is a 100% true story. There was someone who walked into the corporate office. It's a guy, and he had a rental property in El Cid. His name is Michael Magruder. He's a really successful banker at Raymond James. And Michael had a rental on Almeria. I remember, I think it's 325 Almeria. And he went to the broker, and the broker talked to a couple of the more accomplished agents, and nobody wanted it. So the broker called me and he said, "Hey, do you want this?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I took it. And anyway, I got that rental. And by the way, I think the rental was a $4,000 a month. Okay. Now, I didn't have a vision. I didn't have anyone telling me what I should or shouldn't do, or whether or not I should limit my work ethic. So you know what I did? I had this open house. I'm like, remember I told you, this is a business where you roll up the sleeves, you go out, you got to work it. I said, I had this rental that nobody wanted, okay? And I said, you know what? I got nothing going on weekends. I'm going to do open houses for this rental, okay? Now, who does open houses for rentals? And would you think I did it 14 years ago? Well, I did, but let me tell you what happened here. This was an amazing story. So I took this listing that nobody wanted. Nobody viewed it as an opportunity, okay? First of all, I rented it to the office manager of the oldest Gunn Street, Oakland. You know that firm? It's the oldest, most prestigious law firm in Palm Beach. The office manager came in. She rented it for herself. Well, I built a relationship with her. Second, okay, the owner had some extremely high-end clients that were very, very real estate savvy. Because of his introduction, which took a year, and here's the way he described it. He's like, he had a guy who's bought and sold, I think, up to 35 properties in Palm Beach alone. Every single realtor, that guy would be on their Rolodex, right? Because he's bought and sold, he's a wheeler dealer type. So he knows every realtor. There isn't a realtor he doesn't know, doesn't have an experience with. And he got me in front of this guy, Paul Lapidus. And long story short, he ended up he didn't want to, actually the first time he met with me, he called Mike, he said, nice guy, sharp guy, I liked him. I could see he's going to be good in this business, but he guys, I know everyone, but I don't know, maybe we'll see. So, we kind of kept in touch. And he said, you know what, one day he called me up, he said, I'm going to give you a pocket listing on my house. Like, I'm not going to give you a listing. You know what a pocket listing is, you're not going to sign an agreement, but see what you can do with it. So he's giving me a test. Well, all I knew was I'm just going to go out to do everything I could. And I did. And I didn't sell his property in 6 months, but you know what? He gave me a spec home for $6 million, which I sold. I ended up selling his house later down the road. And as a result, I got my first listing in Manalapan, and now I'm the #1 salesperson in Manalapan. Started from a lousy rental that nobody wanted. So when people say to me, you never had opportunity, you've had plenty of opportunity. You just weren't smart enough to see it at the time it came. And sometimes you don't know. I mean, would anyone have thought that lousy little rental would have turned into that? You know how much money I've done in Manalapan this year? I've sold two of the bigger sales, one for 32 million, one for 25, and a bunch of others in between. I probably sold $60 million in Manalapan alone this year. It started from a rental that nobody wanted. So when you say you don't have opportunity, that's a bunch of baloney. You do. You just don't know it at the time. What every single person in Corcoran office at that time, had they known that that lousy rental was going to turn into that, would they have taken it?
Always.
Well, but you don't, but how many are willing to take it? Did I think that was going to happen? Absolutely. And all I was hoping, candidly, was to get the property rented. That's it, get some little experience. But I was willing to work, but I would love to tell you I would thought all these crazy things could happen. Absolutely not. So there's an opportunity that nobody wanted. And look what we did with it. That's pretty, so you have opportunities, but you got to be ready. And sometimes you don't know when they're coming, but they will come if you do all the right things. Here's something I'm just going to touch on briefly. And this is not, it's, if you want to be a luxury broker, it's challenging if you don't live in the market that you work in. I don't care what, and trust me, I've done it in different ways. I've tried to break into markets with a big name and a big track record. I spent a lot of money trying to break into Boca Raton, marketing that I don't think anyone could have competed with, and I was still underwater about 2 years into it. Because isn't it a lot easier to really do this business right? Like Ocean Ridge was the first market that I really successfully conquered, and I've been selling, probably anywhere from 15 homes a year in Ocean Ridge for the last 13, 14, easy. I think last year we sold 19 or 20. So, but it's a lot easier when you live there. And by the way, at that time, and I bought it before I got in real estate, I bought the cheapest home in Ocean Ridge, but I wasn't buying it with a real estate vision. I was in a career, but so I had at least I was in there. I was in a nice little luxury. I was in a nice little luxury town. So I was in the neighborhood. Then my kids end up going to the private school in the areas. Then you build relationships. And by the way, all those people that you meet someday could be future clients. So when you're going to school today and you're not dressed like a professional, just an example, I will give you properties all day long. 400 North Atlantic is a property that we're selling for $6.7 million in the next couple of weeks. And they started as a school relationship. You think had I not presented myself as a professional at all times, you think they would have trusted me with their $7 million asset? I built my brand and my reputation by doing all the right things for a long, long time. So when the day came, I was on his short list of realtors. And we're also representing him on a buy. He's going to buy a house for, I think, 1.3. So there's an $8 million transaction. Always carried myself like a professional. People are always watching. If you really want to be successful in this business, people are always watching you, even when you don't even know it. So always have your A game with you. But it helps living in the market. And some people can't do it. I had an agent recently, actually a little over a year ago. She was looking, and this agent had a lot of great skills. And she was with Sotheby's. She had a lot of great skills. Talented, husband's a doctor. Good work ethic, good communication skills, looks the part, sounds it, and is sincere. She's got all the qualities, and she wanted to get into the luxury space. She was trying to get there. And she called me up and said, I'm really looking to buy this house in Delray. I think it's a little high, but it was in East Delray. It was in the luxury part of the town. And I told her, I said, look, I said, you have to consider the cost of doing business. If it's $50,000 or $100,000 high, I said, this is a street, by the way, where there's $4, $5, $6, $8 million homes. It was kind of more of the, lower end homes on the street. And I said, consider the cost of doing business. It's going to get you in the town. And I also, spending time with her, I knew she was going to be extremely well received, extremely well liked. She knew the business, had the polish. She just needed to get herself in a better position, right? And now, by the way, she's going to do a very successful book of business. And she ended up buying that house, and it's opened up so many doors. So it's tough to break into a luxury market unless you see them at church, you see them at the grocery store, you see them at the gym. It's building relationships, and it goes back to getting a lot of swings at the bat. So it's really important to live there if you can. Not everyone can, but I will be honest with you. If someone tells me today they live in Wellington and they want to sell properties in Palm Beach, unless you can give me some really good reasons as to why, your mom lives on the island, you belong to a couple of social, which is at least get you in the doors, some opportunities. Unless you can give me a really, really compelling reason, it's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be difficult. So just know that up front. It just is what it is. I'm going to tell you another networking story, because when I first started, everyone knows who Christian Angle is? Christian Angle is the #1 broker, I think, in the country right now. He's a good guy, very friendly, had a good professional relationship for a long time. When I first started in the business, remember I told you all those meetings I was going to? I kid you not. That guy, now he was entrenched in his career a little bit, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, okay? But when people think there's secrets in this business, there really isn't. It's nothing. Have I said anything today you haven't heard really before? I don't think so. But when I look at Christian, and Christian looked at me, and we've never had this conversation, but I've always been, I know he feels the same. I can't tell you how many lunches I went to, and that guy was on the other side of Kachina, on the other side of Bradley's or wherever we were, and he was out there just network. I mean, and this is when he was busy, and he had an office, he had agents working for him, and he was very successful. He's out there running around, and I know he still does it today because people always common, always say they see him everywhere. Well, there's no surprise. The guy's going to probably do, I don't know, 500, 600 million this year. It's a crazy amount of number. So there's no secrets to it. It's out there running around. And there's a big thing, and we've got some, John, maybe you can hand them out real quick. So here, I want to talk about listings. Everything I always knew in this business, I wanted to be a listing agent. I don't like, truthfully, unless it's a client or someone I've been referred to. I hate getting in unless it's in my area that I know, that's a whole different ballgame. But I don't want to be a buyer's agent. I do it when opportunity knocks. But for the most part, I don't enjoy someone calling me up and telling me they want me to show them 8 homes, and then you never hear from them again, and then they're talking to 20 other agents, and it's even harder and harder today. But I keep losing my train of thought today. John, where's it? Buyer's agent. Oh, so everything we talked about is whenever I put my name on something, everything you do is a business card. Now, when I first started, I don't care if I was selling, and by the way, let me tell you, backtrack a couple things. I sold homes for $20,000. I don't advertise and market them when I started. I sold homes for 50, I sold homes for 75. I sold homes in areas where I was running for my life with a lockbox to get back to the car in one piece, okay? And things that no one would maybe not appreciate, and certainly I wouldn't market, I wouldn't market, especially as you take. But anytime I've ever put my name on something, I want it to be, it's a business. I want my client, here's the way I think. I want my clients to be proud of their home brochure. I think that when their neighbors come over, and this is stuff that you have to really drench into it. I think when their neighbors come over, I want them to say like, wow, when I list my property, I want this guy representing me because look what he does. John, do you have some of our brochures and stuff? Can you hand them out? So, here's some of the brochures. And, for the little bit of extra, I don't care if you're listing $300,000 homes, why be like everyone else? You can't spend it. The difference between doing it right and doing it average like everyone else is maybe $150. Why not put, why not make it pop? Why not be a superstar? These things aren't that much more money, quite frankly. Get the best photographer, do things in high gloss. I can't tell you how many people have said to me over the years that, we thought your photos were better. Now everyone uses my photographer, so they're really not much better anymore. But I got a head start. But you do something, do it right. When you put a listing on the MLS, I can look at it. I can look at an MLS listing very quickly, and I know a lot about you as an agent just by the way you did it. How much detail write-up? Did you really truly market it? You're hired as a marketing person to promote the property. I see people take $1 million home and do a front shot of the house. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's weak. That's when I see stuff like that, I tell people you shouldn't even be in the business, because if you can't do that right, everyone now is looking on the internet. When people look on listings, they see who the listing agent is. If you're just doing it half and half, you're average. You're falling into that trap. Oh, I don't need to. I don't want to. Well, you know what? Then it's probably not the right business for you. If you put your name on something, do it to the highest level, and people will see it and appreciate it. It goes back to, is someone going to call you immediately that day and tell you your brochure is great and I'm going to call you in 3 years? Absolutely not. No, they're not. But here's a story, John, give it here. Here's a story. I just had this the other day. So here's something. Now this is once I got going. So once I got going, and I also said I wanted to keep putting money in, because once I got going, I wanted to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I was willing to put. Not everyone can do this right away, but here's a book, and we did our first one. We did a book about the town. Okay, the first one I did was Ocean Ridge. We did a book just like this. This is one that we just published in the last couple of weeks. It's about Hypoluxal Island. We did a book, and you guys can pass it around real quick, and it highlights the town. You barely see my name in it, so it's not like Steve Presson's great and I've sold every home on Hypoluxal Island. No, it's an informational piece about the town with beautiful pictorials, write-ups, details, historic factors. Okay, and the first one, and it was about a $12,000 investment. We mailed one to every single homeowner in Ocean Ridge, and to this day, what do you think I see on their coffee tables when I walk in? Man, I got a pretty damn, and you know what? Is there anything threatening about that? Is anyone not walking away and saying, wow, that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty neat. I can't believe he did that. True story, just 2 days ago, I even give you the address, 111 South Island Drive in Ocean Ridge, called me up. I'm gonna list their property. He got my Ocean Ridge one. He said to me in that conversation, he said, I was in sales and marketing. I worked when I was, in my career. And he said, when I got that book that you did in Ocean Ridge, he's like, I knew one day when I sold my house, it was going to be with you. And I mean, that's just one that, so now 7 years later, I'm still reaping the benefits. So like if I was in a community today, and let's just say you want to be a condo or golf course community or, whatever you're looking to, when you can do stuff like that, man, that's like the biggest theme I had was I never wanted anyone to ever call me just another realtor. I wanted people to look at me, look at my name, and look at it with respect. But there's a good guy, does it the right way. I can't say I've sold every property I've listed, of course not. Have things happened to me over the years that were maybe have people pulled some listings from me because we didn't sell it in a year or give it to someone else. We all know it was overpriced. Of course, I've dealt with all that kind of stuff. But I wanted people to say, wow, the guy is a professional, he does it the right way, and he'd be the type of person that I want representing myself and my family if I'm going to trust their biggest asset to. And if you can do it like that, man, that's a long-term successful model. So to this day, that property that I just referenced is going to be you got more than paid my $10,000, not to mention all the other instrumental. And we just did one for Hypoluxal Island. The book rate you're looking at today is going to be mailed out to Hypoluxal Island, every single resident. And, I hope to see them on the, we tried to do this one a little better. I think we get some really nice historic photos. We had the right, I have a professional writer who does all of our research and stuff like that. And man, when people see that kind of stuff, they just put you in a whole different level as a broker, So I take it to heart this day. Everything I do, I don't want everyone to look at my business as being average. I want them to look at it like we, are really trying to be a difference maker. So presentations, now to get into presentations so everything we do, especially for me, is geared towards getting a listing presentation. I love listing presentations. It's like my, and now we know how hard they are, right? So when I first got into business, I'll tell you a quick story. There was a very successful agent in her office. I was getting ready to go on my first listing, which was over in Flagler Point. you know, and I think it was like a $250,000 condo at that time. And I was a little friendly with the assistant, and I was just getting ready, and I asked him a couple questions. I said, and he was working with a very successful broker. So I said, if Eric was his name, I said, if Eric goes on 5 listing appointments, realistically, how many do you think he'll get? And he said, and he gave me an honest answer, because everyone, when I ask this question, everyone gives me a different answer. He said, you'll get about half of them. Half of them. And he was an excellent, and still is an excellent broker. So I said to myself, when I went home that day, and remember I told you my
Here, come on.
running around, all that kind of stuff, is I'm like, damn, you know, is there any way I can do to increase my odds, right? You know, what can I do to make it better? So I'll tell you what I did at that time is at that time, I went out and I bought the biggest computer that you could buy, which I think was like 19 or 20 inches. I put together a PowerPoint presentation that didn't really look that good, but it had like a plan. And I wanted to, there's a lot of people I know, most of you today, don't take this the wrong way, but if you're going on a listing appointment today, I know what you're probably going to do. You're going to do your CMA stuff, which is cool. You're going to go into the office library. You're going to grab the same brochures every other agent grabs here, right? And you're going to go there with your little Keller Williams stuff and maybe a little bag, and that's it. And you know what? In your mind, you think that's it. Well, first of all, every other agent in your office is doing the same thing, okay? So now you're just like everyone else, if you really think about it. So what I did was I went out and got this laptop, put together my presentation. I had a plan in my presentation. A lot of people think when you go on your sales call, you're just going to wing it. You're going to go in, you're going to build a relationship, you're going to show some enthusiasm, and you know the client's going to like you, and you're going to get the listing. Well, man, that's just think about everything you did to get that call. You know, I mean, right? No matter how much my first year I spent, told you, like $80,000. If I broke it down by hours and money per listing appointment, holy cow, you know, and then to say, well, maybe I can only get, and you know what, if I could only get 5, but I was looking for a way to improve it. So I went out and had this really impressive laptop presentation. So when I go in there, I meet with the clients, you know, we do the nice little tour around the home. And then afterwards I say, hey, look, you know, I put together a presentation about your home. I'd love to go through it if you know, and let them kind of say, yeah, of course, absolutely. So then I'd go through my presentation. And by the way, today, just like back then, when I started in this business, so I get 8 out of 10 listing appointments. I get 8 out of 10. It's a real number, 8 out of 10. And when I first started, I was curious as to, I would ask the clients, because, you know, some of them would meet with a bunch of different people, of course, right? And they just meet with me. I was a newbie. You know, I always say to them, I said, you know, so how did you make your decision? And here's what they always said, 2 things: your presentation and your enthusiasm. And obviously my professionalism. And by the way, in my presentation, I wanted to be able to demonstrate in a nice way that I knew the market. So I had a section of talking about the market locally with local comps. I could, you know, so no one ever asked me, you know, how easy, you know how hard it must have been for someone not to ask me, because I looked the part. I walked in, I had my laptop, I had my presentation, I did my analysis. I had a plan. I talked about communication, everything. I wanted to talk about Corcoran, the company I worked with. It's very important, you know, to be able to position your company, especially for what, you know, the type of, you know, you don't take anything for granted, you know, and they're probably going to talk to 2 or 3 other people, and you want to at least cover all your bases. And if you walk out of there, and my point is, when you go in and you grab your stuff, like you think you have a plan, but you really don't. With that presentation, what it did, it made sure that I didn't miss anything. Right? How many times have you walked into an appointment and you said, damn, I forgot like that one thing. And it could, like, for example, communication is a big thing, right? And I have a page about communication, and not just how we call you back. At that time, I used to have like communication, marketing log sheets that would track everything that we've done. People love that stuff. So when people complain about realtors, what's usually the first thing you hear about? The communication's not that good. Have you ever gone on an appointment and you didn't maybe hit that, or you didn't think about hitting on it because you just went with your little Sherwin, or you know, your little Keller Williams? I said Sherwin Williams, the painter yesterday. I was at the painter yesterday. So you walk in and you just think you got everything covered, and you didn't hit their big button, because sometimes they don't ask you. You gotta, but when you have a presentation, you make sure that you didn't miss anything. And I hit everything. So by the way, that one book is a presentation that we use today. Now, I typically put them on hardcover books. You see how customized they are. Now I have a lot of track record and stuff, and you can see some of the marketing pieces that we've created and properties that we've sold. But I man, everything, I send a thank you, do the little things in this business. People just take it for granted. It is very competitive. And you know what, I bank on a lot of my competitors not doing the little things, because I know if I lose something, it's because it's nothing that I control. Maybe you just had a relationship, maybe you dealt with that firm Sotheby's up in New York City, so you kind of think but it's nothing I control. But if you leave something on the table that you control, man, that's taking money out of your pocket. And that's all that time and energy. So have a presentation, have a plan, and make sure you hit it. And my presentation is very specific. Another thing I'm going to hit on real quick about being different and unique. Social media is really, really, really big. If you looked at my social media, we're kind of making a little bit of a switch now. And I try to be, by the way, I never try to be in your face. I try to do things. Remember, I said, I just don't want to be another realtor. Like if you look at my social media, I try to do things which I think add value, not only to the real estate community, but also to the properties that I represent. And people look at you as an expert. Last week, I think we did a video about what's happening in the international market in Miami, and the countries are opening up, and we got all these international buyers coming in, and I was able to paint a nice little positive picture about what I think is going to be happening in the market as we're seeing more and more buyers now come over from Europe, and and a lot of these people have been boxed out for the last 15, 17, 18 months. So I think there's a whole nother buyer pool coming in here. Really, really good stuff. But isn't it great to be out in the front of that kind of stuff, where people just say, oh, wow, wow, you know what I mean? Like, the guy's just out there, he's trying. I'm not saying I've done this or done that. I try to add value. So social media is huge. Get out there and, you might not have a house that you just sold for 6 months, but go out to a property that's unique or something that's interest. There's a golf community or there's a new condo building being, go there and say, and give some facts and insight and price points and who the builder is and the type of units and floor plans and all that kind of stuff, and services and concierge building or whatnot. That stuff's of value. It's non-threatening to anyone. A lot of people I see in this business, they're so focused on themselves that they can't control themselves. Even when they want to, they can't. They just can't do it. But if you're out there trying to that's how you win people over long term. If you take a long-term approach in this business, you can do it. If it's short-term, you'll have some success, but you will nowhere ever reach your full potential because people see right through it. So when I've tried to do stuff over the years, if people say, look, he's different, he's trying to add value, he's trying to add insight, doing those videos is nothing for me. I don't make any money out of that. I'm not, trying to sell a home on Hypoluxo Island or whatnot. I'm trying to hopefully give something to the community that they view in a positive way that at least kind of separates you from the pack. And that's all. When people look at you that way, too many people in real estate, and it's an advantage to me. They look at most realtors as cutthroat, will do anything. I've had all kinds of negative stuff done to me. I mean, I've had everything. I've lost. I had a client I spoke to for about 5 years about an oceanfront property. And it was going to be my first one getting on the ocean. You know how big that was? It's tough when I remember in my career, I had to get my first listing, then my first $500,000 listing, then get my first $1 million listing. And then literally for about 6 or 7 years, I was stuck between 1 and 3 million. And then one time I lost a $5 million listing because the other agent pointed out, and it was a fair thing. And they're like, they knew they were competing with me and they weren't gun shy about it. They said, he's a good guy and he's a good broker, but he really sells a lot of houses between 1 and 3, and that just resonated, and nothing I could have controlled after the fact. After the fact. So I got all those kind of negative things pop up, but So last thing I'm going to say is, and this is a business where, and I would tell you, if you really want to do it, like, go for it. I mean, like, go for it. I can tell you, you're going to fail. I don't call it failing by trying, but a lot of people just use the word that's easy to relate to. I can tell you so many in the beginning. I mean, I was trying to get Donald Trump listing on the ocean, that the Russian bought, which was at that time. I was trying to figure a way of marketing, overnighting stuff, and this and that. And, I had no shot whatsoever. But you know what? I wasn't afraid to put myself out there. When Jack Nicklaus had a property up in, when I first started, within 3 years, I got wind of it, and then I put together this killer presentation and overnighted it. I mean, like, some really, really good stuff. And actually, I got a phone call from the guy because he appreciated what I did, but I had no shot again. I hadn't sold a single home up there in Jupiter Island or that kind of, but I put myself out there. right? But I gave myself an opportunity, but now look where I'm at today. Because I was willing to take a chance. I was willing to fail. And I never considered it failure. I just considered, you know what? All you can do is try. And if you try and you do it the right way, you can have a really, really good career in this business. That's all I got.
Thank you so much. Passion of yours, it's amazing. It's